whispers through bone.
The wind was a low whisper, carrying with it the dry heat of the desert's fading day as Kalen climbed the tallest dune he could find. His fingers curled tightly around the bone flute, the instrument that had rewritten the course of his life and the fate of the desert itself. The sun dipped lower, bleeding orange and blood red across the horizon, casting long, wavering shadows that seemed to stretch and twist like living things across the sand. Each grain shimmered faintly, a tiny mirror to the fading light, and the dry air buzzed with a stillness that felt almost sacred. Kellen's breath came steady but heavy, the weight of his decision pressing down on him like the relentless sun. The flute, carved from bone so pale it almost glowed in the dusk, felt cold and alien in his palm despite the desert's warmth. It was a vessel of ancient power, a key to a forgotten world that had nearly swallowed him whole. And now it was time to bury it, to return it to the silence from which it had been torn. He knelt in the sand and began to dig, his hands working quickly but carefully. The grains slipped through his fingers, some catching on the edges of his weathered skin, but he did not pause. Around him, the desert seemed to hold its breath. The air was thick with the faintest echo of the flute's last song, a haunting melody that tangled sorrow and hope into a sound that felt less like music and more like memory. From a distance, Mira watched. Her dark eyes were sharp, reflecting the twilight with a wary glow. She stood with her arms crossed, the satchel of herbs at her side, and the curved dagger strapped to her belt, catching the last rays of light. The desert was a place she knew well, its dangers, its secrets, its ancient echoes, and she understood the peril that came with disturbing the bones of gods. Her loyalty to Kalen was fierce, forged in shared trials and the silent understanding of what was at stake. She shifted her weight, the soft crunch of sand beneath her boots, the only sound breaking the stillness. Her heart was heavy with relief that the bone flute's power would be sealed away, but beneath that was a steady pulse of fear of what might happen if the fragile balance was broken again. A sudden movement caught her eye. Elian emerged from the shadows, his silver hair gleaming faintly under the stars beginning to prick the sky. His usual sly grin was absent, replaced by an expression of contemplative acceptance. His faded desert robes fluttered in the rising breeze as he approached quietly, nodding to Kalen with a respect that felt earned. "It's done then," Elian said softly, his voice low but clear, carrying the weight of unspoken history. "The gods rest once more, for now." Kalen looked up, meeting Elian's gaze with tired eyes. "For now," he echoed. "The desert holds its secrets well, but peace is never certain." Together, the three watched as Kalen covered the final handfuls of sand over the flute. The grains seemed to swallow the bone whole, erasing its presence from the surface, but not from memory. The desert exhaled, a silent, ancient breath, as if the very earth recognized the sealing of a long-held wound. The stars above grew brighter, their cold light sparkling like distant watchers, keeping vigil over the buried power beneath the dunes. The wind picked up, carrying the faintest hint of melody, an echo of the flute's voice, a whisper of the desert's eternal song. Kalen rose slowly, the weight in his chest mingling with a fragile hope. He was no longer just a wandering bard. He was a keeper of stories, a bearer of legacy, and a guardian of secrets that stretched back to the dawn of time. The desert would remember him, as it would remember the gods sleeping beneath its sands. Myra stepped forward, her eyes meeting Kellen's with a steady reassurance. "The desert is quiet again," she said. "For now, we can rest." Elian's gaze lingered on the horizon, where shadows danced beneath the fading light. "But the sands are never still," he murmured, "and the past has a way of reaching out." Kalen nodded, feeling the truth of those words settle deep within him. The bone flute was buried, its power sealed away, but the melody of the desert, of forgotten gods and ancient wrath, would never fully fade. It lived on in the silence, in the wind, and in the hearts of those who dared to listen. As the three figures turned away from the doom, the desert resumed its timeless vigil. The night stretched on, vast and indifferent, filled with whispers only the patient and the brave could hear. And somewhere beneath the shifting sands, the bone flute slept its secret song, waiting for the day it might once again be called forth. But for now, the desert was silent, and Kalen walked forward, carrying the weight of forgotten power and the melodies of a world both lost and found. The first light of dawn spilled gently over the endless dunes, painting the desert in hues of soft pink and gold. Kalen sat upon a high ridge of sand, the coolness of the early morning still clinging to the grains beneath him. His fingers brushed the strings of a worn lute, coaxing forth a melody that was at once fragile and enduring a song born not from the bone flute's haunting summons, but from the deep well of memory and hope that had taken root within him. The desert, with all its ancient secrets and silent watchfulness, seemed to lean closer, carrying the notes on a breath of wind that stirred the shifting sands. Cullen's eyes, clouded with the weight of what had been and what might still be, reflected the dawning sky. This was no longer the music of summoning or fear. It was a new song, one that honored the past without beckoning its shadows. From the quiet distance, Mira approached, her steps gentle, the soft rustle of her dark cloak barely disturbing the sand. Her sharp eyes softened as she listened, her presence a steady anchor beside him. "Your music," she said, her voice low and warm. "It carries the desert's spirit, but also your own." Kalen nodded, the corners of his mouth lifting in a faint, tired smile. "I want to tell the stories differently now, not as warnings or curses, but as threads binding us to the land and each other." He paused, his gaze tracing the horizon where the sun crept higher. "A desert's voice is vast and patient. If I listen closely, I can hear the echoes of those who came before us, not just gods and spirits, but the people who lived and loved here." Myra settled beside him, drawing a small satchel closer. "My ancestors guarded these sacred places, not to keep others away, but to remind us what must be protected, not just with swords, but with memory and song." Their conversation wove seamlessly with the rising sun, their words and music blending into the morning air. As the day grew warmer, a flicker of movement caught Kellen's eye. Across the dunes appeared Elian, his tall figure framed by the shimmering heat. His silver hair glinted like a mirage, and the sly grin that often played on his lips was tempered now by something softer, more genuine. He approached slowly, hands raised in a cautious greeting. "Your song carries far, Kalen. It speaks of hope, even in the shadows that linger." Kalen regarded him thoughtfully. "And you, what do you hear when you listen to it?" Elian's smile deepened, a rare moment of openness, a chance that the desert's story doesn't end with silence or ruin. The three shared a moment of quiet understanding, an unspoken truce born from shared trials, and the fragile promise of what might yet be. As the sun climbed higher, Kalen felt the weight of the past settling gently upon his shoulders, transformed from a burden into a mantle of responsibility. Night crept over the desert once more, and around a modest campfire, Kalen's new melodies rose softly into the vast silence. The music held no summons for the dead, no call to forgotten gods. Instead, it was a bridge, a song of memory and renewal, threading the lives of those who had come before with those who would walk the sands long after the flute's voice had faded. In the flickering firelight, faces worn by the desert's harshness softened with the glow of hope. Mira hummed along, her fingers tracing patterns in the sand, while Elian watched from the shadows, a quiet guardian in his own right. Kellen's song lingered in the night air, a haunting blend of awe and melancholy that promised the desert stories were far from over. The melodies carried on the wind, a testament to the enduring power of music to awaken not only the dead, but the deepest parts of the soul. As the final notes faded into the vastness, Kaelin knew that though the bone flute lay silent beneath the shifting sands, the desert's new song had only just begun. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the eternal sands listened, waiting for the next melody to rise. The desert held its breath, and the music, fragile, fierce, and full of life, continued to echo across the endless dunes. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the endless sea of sand. Atop a towering dune, Kaelin and Mira stood side by side, silhouettes carved against the amber sky. The desert breathed around them, silent save for the whisper of the wind that carried faint notes of a melody, soft and tentative, yet filled with a promise that resonated in the heart of the barren lands. Myra's sharp eyes, usually so guarded and fierce, softened as she turned to Kaelin. "I must return," she said quietly, her voice steady, but touched with a depth of feeling that betrayed the weight of her decision. "The guardianship is not mine alone, but it is my burden to bear. The desert needs protectors, those willing to stand between its secrets and those who would exploit them." Kaelin nodded, the bone flute resting in his hand, silent now, but still heavy with memory. "You have grown stronger through this journey," he replied, his voice warm with respect. "And so have I. Our paths, once solitary and uncertain, have crossed for a reason." The breeze lifted strands of his sun-bleached hair, carrying with it the scent of dry earth and distant rain, a fleeting hope amid desolation. He thought of the melodies that had once seemed like curses, summoning spirits and stirring gods from their ancient slumber. Now, those same notes felt like a call to something greater, a legacy written not in sandstorms or shadows, but in the stories shared beneath the endless sky. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the world in hues of gold and crimson, a figure emerged from the edges of the campfire's glow. Elian's silver hair shimmered in the moonlight, his sly grin replaced by a look of quiet resolve. Without a word, he approached Kaelin, eyes searching for something unspoken between them. "This is where we part," Elian said softly, his voice a mixture of farewell and gratitude. "The desert holds many secrets, and my path lies apart from yours now. But know this, our stories are intertwined, and your music will echo long after I am gone." Kaelin placed a hand on Elian's shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of their shared journey. "May your path be clear, Elian, and if ever the desert calls you back, you will find a place among us." With a final lingering glance, Elian turned toward the vast darkness of the desert, his figure swallowed by the shifting sands and star-studded night. The campfire's embers flickered, casting dancing shadows that whispered of promises kept and debts owed. Left beneath the solitary acacia tree, Kaelin cradled a new instrument, its strings warm beneath his fingertips, an extension of his soul. He closed his eyes and began to play, the melody weaving through the cool night air like a thread binding past and future. It sang of gods and mortals, of forgotten wars and enduring hope, of a desert that was both graveyard and cradle. Each note was a step forward, a bridge across the chasms of time and memory. The stars above shimmered in approval, their light a silent chorus to the bard's song. Somewhere in the distance, the faint sound of footsteps stirred the sand. On the horizon, a caravan of figures crested a distant dune, their silhouettes fragile against the dawn's first light. Among them, a young girl with eyes wide with wonder, Nim, the scavenger who had become an unlikely ally. Her gaze was fixed on the glowing sky, a spark of determination kindling within her. The desert's endless dance continued, timeless and unyielding. But now, with each note carried on the wind, the sands whispered not only of forgotten gods and buried powers, but of new beginnings and stories yet to be told. Kellen's music was no longer a solitary lament. It was a living legacy, a melody that would endure through the eternal sands. and as the first rays of sunlight touched the earth, the bard smiled, knowing that his journey was no longer one of solitude, but of connection. A song shared, a path joined, and a future shaped by the harmony of past and present. The desert waited, listening. The sun hung low over the horizon, casting long shadows across the village nestled at the edge of the endless dunes. The air shimmered with heat, heavy and still, as if the desert itself held its breath. Dust swirled in lazy eddies along the cracked pathways, carrying with it murmurs and whispers, stories that had taken root like ancient bones beneath the sand. Kalen walked slowly, his footsteps stirring the fine particles, his eyes tracing the worn faces of villagers who glanced furtively toward him, their voices hushed but thick with curiosity and fear. The tales of the bone flute, the shrouded god, and the battle that had once threatened to unravel the desert's fragile peace had not faded completely. Instead, they persisted as murmurs, half-remembered songs on the lips of those who dared speak them. Kalen knew these whispers well. They were the desert's way of reminding all who lived here that beneath the shifting sands lay power both terrible and beautiful, a power that had been silenced but never truly forgotten. Passing a small marketplace where the air was fragrant with sun-baked spices and dried herbs, Kalen caught sight of a figure darting between stalls. A slight movement, a quick glance, and then a cautious step forward. The boy was small, wiry, with skin bronzed by the harsh sun, and eyes that gleamed with a mixture of wonder and determination. He moved with the nimbleness of someone who had grown up knowing the desert's unforgiving nature. A scavenger by trade, perhaps, but something more in his gaze. "You're Kalen," the boy said, voice barely above the hum of the marketplace. The bard who played the flute that spoke to the dead. Kalen studied him for a moment, the weight of countless journeys reflected in his tired eyes. "And you are?" "Nim," the boy replied, stepping closer, his hand brushing a leather satchel slung across his shoulder. "I've heard the stories. About the flute, the gods, the desert. They say the music can wake the past. Can it?" A faint smile touched Kellen's lips, bittersweet and slow. "Yes," he said softly, "it can. But the past is a dangerous thing to awaken." They settled by a crumbling stone well, its edges cracked and worn smooth by countless seasons. Nim's gaze was steady, unafraid, filled with the kind of fearless curiosity that comes from knowing the desert's secrets are as much a part of you as your own breath. "Why did you stop playing?" Nim asked, voice laced with both wonder and sadness. Kalen looked out over the dunes, where the sun's dying light set the sand ablaze in hues of gold and crimson. "Because some melodies are meant to rest," he replied. "Because power without balance can consume everything it touches." A sudden gust of wind swept across the sands, lifting grains into a swirling dance that caught the fading light. For a moment, faint echoes of an ancient melody seemed to ripple through the air, brushing against Kellen's senses like a ghost's caress. Memories long buried stirred within him, the haunting tunes that had once summoned spirits, the weight of God's wrath, the fragile hope that had kept him walking forward. Nim watched him quietly, sensing the depth of the unspoken words, the history etched into the bard's soul. "Will the music ever return?" Nim asked. Kalen reached into his satchel and pulled out a small wooden flute, simple and unadorned, carved with the gentle curves of desert vines. He handed it to Nim, the gesture heavy with meaning. "The music never truly leaves," Kalen said. "It waits for those who listen, those brave enough to carry its burden." Nim took the flute with reverence, fingers tracing the worn patterns as the desert sky faded into twilight. Stars began to twinkle overhead, ancient and eternal, as if watching over the passing of a torch. "Will you teach me?" Nim asked, eyes bright with hope. Kalen nodded, a quiet resolve settling within him. "I will, but remember, the desert listens, and its songs are not easily forgotten." As night embraced the village, the two figures sat beneath the vast canvas of stars, a bard and a boy, bound by melody and memory, guardians of a legacy as old as the sands themselves. The whispers in the sand stirred once more, carrying with them the promise of new songs yet to be sung. The desert held its secrets close, but in the meeting of these two souls, the cycle of memory and melody continued, a haunting blend of hope and melancholy that would shape the days to come. And somewhere, beneath the endless dunes, the echoes of the bone flute lingered, waiting patiently for the next hand to awaken its voice. The wind shifted again, soft and steady, as if the desert itself was listening and ready to sing once more. The dawn spilled slowly over the vast desert, the horizon bleeding hues of gold and rose that kissed the endless waves of sand. Kalen sat alone atop a high dune, the bone flute long since silenced beneath the earth, replaced now by the soft strumming of his lute. His fingers moved deftly, weaving a melody that was at once fragile and enduring, a song born of the desert's silence and the ancient voices it had carried through time. The notes drifted on the warm air, a haunting thread that stitched together the memories of sun-baked stones, whispered legends, and the echo of gods now only found in dreams. Kellen's eyes, deep pools of sorrow and hope, scanned the horizon where sand met sky, and somewhere beneath that vastness, the spirits he had once awakened settled again into their eternal slumber. But Kalen was no longer the solitary wanderer who had stumbled upon the bone flute. His journey had carved him into a guardian of memory, a bard whose music was a bridge between worlds. Each melody he composed was an offering to the gods who had shaped the desert, to the people who lived beneath its relentless sun, and to the restless spirits that lingered just beyond sight. The village of Al-Qamar awaited him as the sun climbed higher. Word had spread of the bard whose songs held the weight of forgotten power, and a crowd gathered beneath a canopy of palm fronds and the azure sky. Kellen's voice rose steady and clear, carrying the tales of ancient wars and whispered warnings of love lost and hope rekindled. The villagers listened, their faces softened by firelight and tears, the music bridging generations and healing wounds that time alone could not touch. Among them, Nim, the young scavenger with bright eyes and a heart open to wonder, sat entranced. To Nim, Kellen's songs were not just stories. They were lifelines, threads connecting her to a heritage almost lost in the shifting sands. When the final note faded into the night, she approached the bard with a shy smile, her voice a quiet question about the future. Kalen met her gaze and saw reflected there the same yearning that had driven him across the barren wastes. "The desert sings its secrets to those who listen," he said softly, "and now it sings through you." In the days that followed, Kalen and Mira walked together through sacred ruins, places where the war of gods had left scars etched deep into stone and sand. Myra's hand rested lightly on Kellen's shoulder, grounding him in the present as he hummed a tune that seemed to awaken the very stones beneath their feet. The melody was a vow, a promise that the past would not be forgotten, and that the guardianship of these hallowed places was a sacred trust shared between them. Myra's eyes, sharp and fierce, softened for a moment as she spoke. "You carry more than music, Kalen. You carry the legacy of those who came before, and with it, the hope of those who will come after." Kalen nodded, feeling the weight of that truth settle comfortably upon his shoulders. The power of the bone flute was gone, buried beneath the sands, but the spirit it had awakened lived on in his songs, in the memories they preserved, in the futures they inspired. One evening, as twilight bled into night, Elian approached the edge of camp, his silver hair catching the last light like strands of moonlight. His sly grin was tempered now by a hint of sadness, a man forever caught between shadows and light. Without a word, he turned toward the desert's vast embrace, his silhouette fading into the horizon. Kalen lifted his lute and played a final, haunting melody, a benediction, and a question lingering in the cool night air. The music sailed across the dunes, a farewell to a companion whose path was forever uncertain, and a reminder that some stories never truly end. As the notes faded into silence, Kalen looked to the stars, feeling the pulse of the desert beneath his feet and the melody of the eternal sands within his heart. The journey had changed him. The weight of forgotten gods was now a part of him, woven into every song he would ever sing. The desert held its secrets close, but through Kellen's music, those secrets would live on whispered across the dunes, carried on the wind, and etched into the souls of all who listened. The bard's legacy was not just in the past he remembered, but in the future he dared to dream. And as the first notes of a new song rose with the dawn, the desert stirred once more, not with the wrath of gods, but with the hopeful breath of a story just beginning. The sun began its slow descent, casting a molten glow across the endless waves of sand that stretched as far as the eye could see. Kalen stood at the crest of a towering dune, the bone flute resting lightly in his hands. The air was cool now, a gentle breeze sweeping the desert's breath beneath a sky painted with streaks of amber and rose. Around him, silence reigned, a vast, profound quiet that seemed to listen as intently as he did. His fingers hovered over the carved bones, each note etched with the weight of 1,000 forgotten years. The flute was no longer just an instrument. It was a key to a past too heavy to bear, a voice that had sung the rise and fall of gods long buried beneath the shifting sands. Tonight, he would play one last time. The first note slipped from his lips, fragile yet resonant, a thread weaving through the stillness. It was a melody born of sorrow and hope, a lament for the lost and a prayer for the living. As the notes unfurled, the desert seemed to breathe deeper, the sand beneath his feet stirring with faint whispers that danced like shadows in the fading light. Memories flooded his mind, the restless spirits summoned in the storm, the towering presence of Azareth cloaked in shifting shadows, the fierce determination in Myra's eyes, and the conflicted glance Elian had cast before vanishing into the dunes. Each memory was a note in a symphony of ancient power and human frailty. Myra stood a little way off, her dark eyes reflecting the twilight. She carried the weight of her lineage with quiet grace, her presence a steady anchor amidst the swirling tides of magic and destiny. Elian lingered nearby, his sly grin softened by a rare moment of sincerity, the faded robes of a traveler who had walked the fine line between betrayal and redemption. Together, they had weathered storms both literal and figurative, but now the journey was drawing to its inevitable close. Kellen's melody wove through the desert like a thread of light in the encroaching dusk, each note a farewell to the power he had borne and a promise to the land he had come to love. The final note lingered in the air, fragile and trembling, before dissolving into the quiet. The desert exhaled, the restless spirits retreating into the sands, their voices silenced, but their stories imprinted in the heartbeats of the earth. Kalen laid the bone flute carefully on the dune's crest, the intricate carvings catching the last glimmers of sunlight before the wind swept it gently beneath the shifting sands. A profound stillness settled over the landscape, a peace born not of forgetfulness, but of understanding. The power of the flute was buried once more, locked away from mortal hands, but alive in the melodies that stirred the soul and whispered through the dunes. Kalen turned away from the resting place, his steps slow but steady. The desert stretched before him, vast and eternal, a living testament to the dance of memory and melody, life and death. The weight of forgotten gods rested lightly on his shoulders now, carried with the quiet dignity of one who had seen beyond the veil. As twilight deepened into night, the stars emerged silent witnesses to the bard's final song. Somewhere in the distance, the faintest breeze carried his melody across the sands, a haunting blend of awe and melancholy that would echo in the hearts of those who dared to listen. Mira caught his gaze and nodded, a shared understanding passing between them. Elian's silhouette faded into the gathering shadows, his path uncertain but forever touched by the journey they had shared. Kellen's journey was far from over, but the bone flute's voice was stilled. The desert held its secrets close, but its eternal song had found a new bearer, one who would carry its melody forward in stories and dreams, in the quiet moments when the sands whispered beneath the stars. And so, atop the highest dune, with the last light fading and the desert listening, Kalen played the melody of the eternal sands, a song of endings and beginnings, of silence and sound, of memory and hope. The flute was silent, but the music lived on. The melody lingered in the air, a haunting reminder that some powers, once awakened, never truly fade. They only wait for the right moment to sing again.